Long live Ireland, ladies and gentlemen. There's been trouble in Ireland, and we're going to talk about that tonight on the report from Tiger Mountain. Stick around and listen. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's been trouble in Ireland, and we're going to talk about that tonight on the show. So there was an attack on some school children, in Ireland, in Dublin. I have a friend over there as a filmmaker, and one of his kids went to this school. So this is something that affects friends of mine. There was an Algerian immigrant who attacked some school children. Obviously, France has had trouble with Algerian Muslim immigrants attacking people, and obviously this has now come to Ireland. And then there was a kind of almost spontaneous pogrom, you could say, against immigration. Conor McGregor was an MMA fighter who, is a famous athlete in Ireland. He's come out and said Ireland is at war, ladies and gentlemen, which I think to a large extent it is. I think a lot of our countries, due to mass immigration, particularly from people who are hostile to Western culture like Muslim countries, we are at war, with this problem. And, I think Ireland is a country that, is kind of strange because, if you look at their political class, at the moment, it's all very much controlled by global elites. You have Leo Varadkar, who's the current Taoiseach. Taoiseach is their version of the Prime Minister. And he is a gay Indian man who, is from the School of Davos, World Economic Forum and all that. I mean, I don't know why they have a gay Indian man leading Ireland, which used to be one of the strongest nationalist countries on earth. I mean, if, recent history needs to remind you, for hundreds of years, the Irish have been fighting the English. Are people who are basically the same as them, ladies and gentlemen. They're Protestant, the English are Protestant, and the Irish are Catholic. And there's been this huge fight going on with them, really for hundreds of years. But, I guess since, 1917, 1918, things kicked off in the modern era. And obviously there was the troubles, of the 60s and 70s. And, there was all the terrorist bombings of the IRA. People think that Muslim terrorists, are out of hand. I mean, they should have remembered I was alive in the 70s and the early 80s during Thatcher's time. And there was just a tremendous amount of bombings going on from the IRA. It seemed to be every week there'd be some kind of bombing. You know what I mean? So there was tremendous unrest from the Irish Republican Army, who were fighting to keep the English out of Ireland. It's just incredible that when that conflict ended in the late 90s, because that was a conflict that did end, the IRA decided to disarm itself. It had a political wing, Sinn Féin, which was actually radical left. So they were left-wing nationalists, which is an unusual combination. They sort of went globalist, the Sinn Féin, and begin to buy into all this kind of Marxist crap that the World Economic Forum, then they began to flood Ireland with immigrants, and obviously when that first begins, it might only be 1 or 2% of the population. People don't really notice. They think, oh, there's just a few more people. But slowly but surely, that it's getting so that I think in something like 50 years, Irish people will be a minority in their own country. I mean, just let that sink in. I don't know if you've been to Ireland. I have. It's definitely one of my favourite countries on earth. Probably with Australia, it's almost the most like Australia. The people have a very, and I'm talking about Australians, real, Anglo-Saxon Australians. The Irish people are very much like us, and obviously many of us have Irish background. And so, it is a country very much like Australia and its people. The people there are incredibly authentic. They've produced some of the greatest poets, writers, playwrights, novelists of the last 100 years. From W.B. Yeats to, W.H. Auden to Oscar Wilde to, James Joyce. The list just goes on of major world Irish geniuses. It's an incredible country. The people there are unique. They do have this strange dislike for England and the English, but I don't know how they could fight for 400 years to keep the English, who are people basically the same as them, out of their country. And then, when the troubles wind down in the late 90s, they just, for the last 25 years, have thrown their doors open to people from cultures that clearly hate the Irish culture and are going to do everything they can to destroy it. So it's a very strange situation, what's going on. Obviously, these mass demonstrations have raised the issue, according to Leo Varadkar, the Taoiseach, of right-wing terrorism or whatever, and obviously that's been the main point of a talking point that's come out of it. How can Leo Varadkar crack down on hate speech and all this kind of stuff? Which is basically, it was a kind of populist uprising where the Irish people just weren't going to take it. And, I know that Sinn Féin has been corrupted by the Marxists and the School of Davos, But, these are a people that are going to fight for their own country, ladies and gentlemen. They're actually a very, very decent people, the Irish, and I really, really love the Irish people. But they are the kind of people, they don't back down from a fight. And if Sinn Féin has been corrupted, some other organisation will rise up. And there will be an uprising against Ireland being taken over by another people, I'll tell you that much. It's going to be a fight, ladies and gentlemen. And obviously, we're seeing the beginnings of it here with this populist mass uprising, which could almost be called a pogrom. So it's fascinating what's going on. Obviously, we're going to watch it from a distance over here in Australia, but we're with our Irish brothers and in their fight for hegemony and keeping Ireland Irish and making Ireland great again. And, of course, Irish lives matter.